The little girl's scream echoed through the cold concrete of the underground parking lot. Her tiny shoe slapped against the floor as she ran, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please. Someone help my mom," she cried. Her voice trembled with fear, desperation, and a kind of heartbreak no child should ever know. A few feet away, a woman lay on the ground, unmoving. Her pale face was turned sideways, her body curled as if she'd simply folded where she stood. She wore a neat cream-colored suit, the kind that showed she was someone important, someone who carried the weight of the world on her shoulders. But in that moment, she looked fragile, human. Helpless. And the only person close enough to hear the child's cries was a man in a blue janitor's uniform, pushing a mop. Before we continue, if you're new here, welcome to Kindness Diaries. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us bring more heartwarming stories of kindness to the world. Now, let's begin. Tom had worked the night shift in the parking garage for almost 3 years. As a single dad raising his 8-year-old son, Ethan, he took whatever job allowed him to pay the bills and still spend time with his boy. Life had not been easy, but Tom had a quiet strength to him, an inner resilience carved from years of doing his best with what little he had. That night, he was mopping the last row when he heard the little girl sobbing. He looked up, confused at first. Kids didn't usually wander alone in parking basements. But when he saw her running toward him, panic written all over her face, he dropped the mop instantly. "Sir. Please. Help my mommy. She won't wake up," she cried. Tom didn't hesitate. He rushed past the girl and knelt beside the woman on the floor. She was barely breathing, her pulse weak. Tom's heart pounded. He recognized the woman instantly, Margaret Reed, the CEO of the massive tech company whose offices sat above the garage. She was known for being brilliant, powerful, and intimidating. Tom had only ever seen her from afar, always rushing, always talking into her phone, always looking too busy for anything human. But none of that mattered now. Right now, she was just a mother who needed help. "Call 911, Tom said gently to the little girl. "Do you know how?" The child nodded and shakily dialed. Tom checked Margaret's airway, moved her slightly to a safer position, and kept his voice steady for the little girl's sake. "You're doing great. What's your name?" "Lily," she sniffed. "Okay, Lily. I'm Tom. Your mom is going to be okay. You're not alone, I promise." But the truth was, Tom was terrified. His hands were steady, but his mind raced. He had taken a first aid course years ago when Ethan was born, determined to be prepared for anything. He never imagined he'd use those skills to save a CEO in a parking garage. Margaret suddenly gasped, her breathing turning shallow and uneven. Tom recognized the signs, she was slipping into shock. He took off his work jacket and gently laid it over her to keep her warm. "Mommy, please wake up," Lily whispered, kneeling beside her mother, touching her hand. Tom's heart broke at the sight. In that moment, he wasn't thinking of the difference in status between them. He wasn't thinking of how Margaret Reed owned a company worth millions, while he was a janitor barely earning enough to get by. He was just thinking of Ethan. What if it were his son crying like that? What if someone walked past and did nothing? No. He wouldn't let that happen. Tom stayed right there, holding Margaret steady, guiding Lily through the chaos, and answering the dispatcher's questions calmly until the ambulance arrived. When the paramedics rushed in, one of them turned to Tom and said, "You saved her. If you hadn't stepped in when you did, things could have gone very differently." But Tom didn't hear the praise. His eyes were on Lily, who clung to him tightly as they lifted her mother onto the stretcher. Can you come with me?" she whispered nervously. Tom hesitated. He didn't know if it was appropriate. But then Margaret, half-conscious on the stretcher, opened her eyes just enough to see him. Her lips moved, barely audible. "Please, stay with her." So he did. At the hospital, hours passed before the doctors finally came out with updates. Margaret had suffered a sudden medical collapse brought on by stress, exhaustion, and untreated high blood pressure, something she'd ignored for years. But she would recover. Lily immediately burst into tears of relief, hugging Tom as tightly as her little arms could manage. He hugged her back, feeling the emotional weight lift off both of them. When Margaret was stable enough for visitors, Tom walked Lily to her mother's room. Margaret looked pale but awake. Her eyes softened when she saw her daughter. Then she looked at Tom. "You were there when no one else was," she said, her voice quiet but sincere. "I don't know how to thank you." Tom shook his head. "Anyone would have helped." Margaret stared at him for a long moment, and something shifted in her expression, something humbled, something real. "You'd be surprised how many people don't." Over the next few days, Margaret learned more about the men who had saved her life. A single father. A janitor. A man who had never asked for anything but had given everything when it mattered. A week later, Tom received a call from her office. Margaret personally offered him a new job, one that paid more than double his current salary, with daytime hours and full benefits. When Tom asked why, she said one simple thing. "Because kindness deserves a door to a better life. You opened one for me. Let me open one for you." Tom accepted, not for himself, but for Ethan, for a future brighter than he ever thought possible. In the end, Margaret recovered completely. Lily never forgot the night a stranger in blue saved her mother. And Tom never forgot that small acts of kindness can ripple farther than we ever imagine. Kindness doesn't care about titles, money, or status. It flows from the heart of one human being to another. If one person chooses to act, the world becomes a little softer. A little safer. A little kinder. And that is how kindness grows, one moment, one choice, one heart at a time.